here to help you with breeze, planting seeds and teaching skills. Teachers turn schoolyards to dreams. Who hate school gardens with ease?
How to use fall and winter to plan for a magical spring food garden. You're listening to School Gardens with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Leila Mireskandari, and this is episode 65. If you've been listening, you know that we are talking about all the, garden and gardening related stuff you can do in fall and winter these days. We've talked about the 5 gardening activities you can do indoors during fall and winter. I gave you a free checklist for that. I also introduced you to my Oasis Fall and Winter program. By the way, the doors to it will stay open until the end of October. So if you're catching this episode before then, go check it out. And last week, we talked about how to grow a non-stop supply of salad greens in your classroom all school year round. And that applies to fall and winter as well, obviously. But today, I want to talk to those of you who are inspired to grow an outdoor school garden in spring, or even an indoor school garden in spring. Like you're more excited about spring than you're about fall and winter. Maybe the thought of an indoor winter garden doesn't excite you into action, and maybe you'd rather wait for spring to consider gardening with your class. Not a problem. That's actually very understandable. I myself, even though I know how amazing a fall and winter indoor garden would and could be inside a classroom, of course, a spring garden is so much more exciting, no doubt. But what I want to warn you about is waiting till spring. If you are dreaming a school garden, you gotta start planning as soon as possible, right about now. Waiting till spring or even end of winter is not a wise decision, simply because it will be way too late. Beginning of the school year is the time to budget and plan for the entire year, for everything, not just for school gardens, for everything. Growing a school garden has to be in people's radar now, and it won't get the budget that it deserves. Usually that's the case. Your school might be different and you might have access to a little bit of a discretionary budget that, it's allocated to you, assigned to you, and you can decide what project you want to allocate to it later. That's fine. But do you know how much money you need for it? And more importantly, do you know how you want to build the garden or even refresh and renew an existing garden? What's the plan for, maintenance of it? And most importantly, what and how do you want to teach in it? How is it going to connect to your curriculum? When will you grow the garden? And who's going to grow the garden? Do you have approvals for it? Do you have a pitch prepared? Even if you don't need a pitch, because you don't need to convince anybody, which usually is not the case. You usually have somebody to convince about this. But let's say that's the case. Do you know exactly what you want to do? Are you planning to wing it? Don't. All those failed school gardens you see out there are because teachers, or even worse, parents thought, how hard could it be? We're just going to, allocate some money to it, buy some tools and supplies like soil and seed and shovels and gloves and things like that, and just get on with it. No, that is not how it works. That is actually how it doesn't work. That's how all these budding school gardens fail and die before even getting started, really. So don't do that. Don't wait. Growing an educational spring garden is actually very easy and super rewarding if and only if you have the right plan. That's a promise. It will be easy, but the time to plan is now. And to help you with that, I have a free guide called How to Pitch Your School Garden Project. Go grab it from the show notes. Because even if you don't need to pitch your idea at a meeting, at the district, let's say, or even to a smaller group at the parents' council meeting, or even if you don't need to pitch it to your principal, the free guide will help you, because just thinking about how you would have pitched it, like a hypothetical scenario, that will get your brain working on all the details that you need to consider and plan for to have a successful school garden. Here's the list of all the things discussed in the free guide. Who will grow the garden? Spoiler, that would be your students and your students only. A school garden The ones that are successful are 100% powered by the students. But also who else will be involved and in what capacity. And spoiler, you will be leading it and the parents will cheering on from the sidelines without touching the garden. The guide also shows you what you should grow and not grow in a school garden. Not everything is proper for school garden growing. What you could teach in the garden and how to connect it to your curriculum. Where should you build the garden? When should your students grow the garden? The guide even includes design ideas to make your maintenance super easy, especially during summertime. It includes how to plan for a summer maintenance. And it finally talks you through budgeting for the entire thing. Now again, even if you don't need to raise funds for your project, meaning you have all the money in the world that you need for this, which usually is not the case, but let's say that's the case for you. Even if that's the case, you yourself need to know how much money your project needs for which stage and when should the money be spent and on what should it be spent and all that. Most importantly, what not to waste your money on. I created this really helpful guide last year and also dedicated 5 podcast episodes to it, episodes 11 to 15. You can go and take a listen. But before you do that, go ahead and download the guide because the teachers who got the guide last year rave about it. So go ahead and download it from the show notes. I know it will help you. It will help you a lot and it will make your planning super easy. I'll talk to you next week in another episode. You've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and please share this episode with other teachers who might be interested in this topic. See you next week for a new episode.